Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It is Ask the Experts here on Talk Radio 1190. We interview local prominent professionals here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Joining me on today's show, it's attorney David Pritchard of Pritchard Law Firm. Before we get to him, you can find him online at dlplegal.com. That's dlplegal.com. 817-285-8017. That's 817-285-8017 is the phone number you can reach at. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you doing today?
Doing good, thank you. Pleased to be back with you.
It's great to have you back on. I know it's been a little bit, but Mr. Pritchard, I'm glad to talk to you. I'm excited to talk to you today. And I guess before we get into things, why don't you since it's been a little bit, why don't you tell the listeners out there what your law firm is all about?
Primarily, I like to say that we're an O law firm, OWE. If you owe too much money or if somebody owes you money, we can help you solve it. We've been doing it for a long time, and in today's market, the people that seem to have the greatest need are those that owe too much money, and we can help you so that you're not losing sleep at night. You're not arguing with your husband or your wife about spending money, and you don't have to explain to your kids why you have to move in the middle of the school year and go to another school. We can help you with those financial struggles, and we've been doing it a long time, and I really feel your pain, and I'd like to help you solve that pain, put that pressure on my shoulders rather than yours, and that's really what the Pritchard Law Firm is all about.
Tried to save them a headache. I love it. All right. Well, I tell you what, let's jump right into it, and let's kind of start with if somebody's in a tough situation with their car. If it's been repossessed, is there anything they can do to keep their car?
Well, the most important thing to do is not to stick your head in the sand. It's to act. The creditor who has repossessed your car has to hold that car for 10 days before they can do anything with it. So we need to act, or you need to act in those 10 days. And really there's two realistic options. Realistic option number one is you reach out to the creditor. They've picked up your car because you haven't made payments. Is there a payment solution that they will accept that you can do? That's probably the first thing you ought to do, that self-help, so you know what you're facing. And then once you know what you're facing, then we can come up with a plan to get to that. A lot of times they'll say, they want the full balance. Well, that becomes impossible. None of us can realistically pay off the full balance of our car in 10 days. So then we got to look at the other option, and the other option we would look at is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. In a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, upon filing the bankruptcy, under our court rules, they have to return the car to you. You don't have to pay the storage fees, the towing fees. You just have to go there and pick up your car. Then in the Chapter 13, we put together a repayment plan that allows us to stretch the car loan out over a new 60 months. So if you're 3 years into your car loan and your payments are $500 a month, if we re-amortize that loan to a new 60 months, we are certainly lowering that payment, $100, $200 a month. So that's a savings to you, and you get to keep the car. So doing nothing is the thing to avoid. Action is what it is. And, of course, we'd be glad to help you at the Pritchard Law Firm.
Let's kind of flip it a little bit, Mr. Pritchard, and let's go to mortgage side of things. Say I'm in a situation where I'm 3 months behind on my mortgage loan and I can't catch up on it at all at once. Is there anything I can do personally? How should I attack that, I guess you could say?
Well, the first thing to do would, once again, to take some self-help and reach out to your mortgage company and see if they have a quick loan modification that'll let you stick some payments on the end. If they start with, you got to fill out this, fill out that, that generally is not going to work for us. We find very few loan modifications really get approved in a timely manner, and the burden of all the paperwork becomes difficult. So what we would once again do is look at a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which allows us to put the payments that you're behind into the plan and once again pay them over 60 months. So if your mortgage payment's $1,200 a month and you're 3 months behind, then we would put that $3,600 in the plan and stretch it out over a period of time. And you would start making your new mortgage payment on the first of the month, and you don't have to catch up the arrearage. That generally works very, very well for people, and it allows you to get caught up. And many people we see, you're not 3 months behind, you're 8 months behind because you've started the modification program, you've tried something else, and it hasn't worked. And so then it's a big number that like the car that you can't come up with, but you can make the monthly payment, and it's a real clean program, and it's court-ordered, so we're not negotiating with the creditor. The court simply comes in with the big hammer and says, here's what our rules are. Our rules are that if you're this many months behind, and that's the number, we can put that in a plan and spread it out over 60 days. 60 months. And so you get to keep your house. And with the value of houses going up, that's a real economic savior to you, that you get to keep that house and get that continued equity. And so we can help you solve that problem by just reaching out to us at the Pritchard Law Firm.
And to do that, all you got to do today is you can call them first, 817-285-8017. That's 817-285-8017. That's a phone number you can reach the fine folks at Pritchard Law Firm at. You can also follow them online or check out their website. It's dlplegal.com. That's dlplegal.com. We'll continue on. We'll take a break here shortly. Something that you never want to see happen, but if somebody had to file bankruptcy, will that ruin their credit forever?
That's a really surprising answer to most people. The answer is no. In fact, the filing of bankruptcy in most cases improves your credit. We got to think about today's times. The answer was certainly different when I was a young lawyer, when everything, there was no, I started before the internet, when everything was just shared by your credit score. Well, your credit score moves very, very slowly in the old days, but today, information is instantaneous. I mean, we apply for car loans online and get approved or disapproved within 5 minutes. The same has changed with your credit report. The information is updated so regularly that the bankruptcy will show on there, but it will also show all that debt that we've dealt with in the bankruptcy is no longer being reported as negative. And the example I want to give is, let's say that you've got yourself messed up with credit cards and you've got $60,000 worth of credit card debt and you just can't pay it. Well, by filing bankruptcy, we resolve that $60,000. Well, if you're a lender, who do you want to lend to? David, who owes $60,000 in credit cards that he can't pay? Or David, who is 18 months out of bankruptcy, got a job making $5,000 a month and has no credit card debt? Well, the answer seems clear, that the person who comes out of bankruptcy is going to be able to get a loan. Now, it's not instantaneous. It's probably 18 months to 2 years. If you're a high earner, you might recover more quickly. But bankruptcy is not going to ruin your credit forever. That old tagline, bankruptcy is a 10-year mistake, is just not true anymore. It just is not true. And the benefits of it far outweigh whatever it may do to your credit.
Now, and that's great news. I know my personal self, I would assume that it would ruin your credit. So I know that is probably music to the listeners' ear, just in case. Hopefully they're not in that situation, but you never know. Last but not least, and then we'll take that break. It kind of plays off this. If I'm behind my bills, say I'm behind my bills and just can't seem to get caught up, even though, or if it's a family thing and you guys make $90,000 a year, what can somebody do if they're in that situation?
Well, that situation is generally handled best by a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, because what it allows us to do is two things. Once again, the Chapter 13 bankruptcy allows us to spread out our debt over a 5-year period of time. But it also allows us to pay only what we can pay through the bankruptcy system. So if we owe $90,000 and or whatever amount we owe, and we can only pay back half of it, Well, through the bankruptcy, we'll only pay half of it, and the rest of the bills will be discharged. If you're a high earner, you're going to have to pay some of it back, but not all of it. But it's based on what you have the ability to pay back. Your creditors aren't worried about your ability to pay. They're worried about their particular payment. And many times we're able to have a monthly payment that is less for all of your credit card debt or all of your bills, and this is especially true if there's medical bills that pop on somebody, for less than one of the bills payment per month. So it's something to look at very seriously. It's not hopeless, and we just got to take the steps and move forward. And again, put that pressure on my shoulders and let me work the system to help you sleep better at night and not have arguments at the family home.
We're talking with attorney David Pritchard on today's Ask the Experts. Great to have him back on the show. We're going to take a quick break here on the Ask the Experts, just a real quick one, and I mean that. So stay tuned. We got a ton of things still to cover on the other side of things. This is Ask the Experts here on Talk Radio 1190. We'll be right back.
At the Pritchard Law Firm, they are proud to offer knowledgeable first-class service to every single client. Backed by decades of experience in both collections and bankruptcy, our founder, David, represents creditors, lenders, and individuals who face a financial dilemma. At the Pritchard Law Firm, their caseload covers nearly all areas of the collection field, guarding clients' rights in regards to collateral and unpaid accounts. They regularly take on cases that involve home equity lawsuits, foreclosure, evictions, sequestrations, replevin, general collection matters, and bankruptcy matters under Chapters 7, 11, and 13 of the Bankruptcy Code. Most of our services are provided on a flat fee basis. This means you can set a budget for each file. We primarily represent clients in Fort Worth, Dallas, Parker, and Denton counties, as well as the surrounding regions of the DFW Metroplex. Contact the Pritchard Group today at 817-285-8017.
Welcome back to the show. It is Ask the Experts here on Talk Radio 1190. We interview local prominent professionals here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We're talking with attorney David Pritchard of the Pritchard Law Firm today. 817-285-8017. That's 817-285-8017. DLPlegal.com is the website you can find them at. That's DLPlegal.com. Of course, if you have any questions, they'd love to hear from you. Reach out to them. Just give them a call, even if you just need to pick their brain a little bit. And I know, building off that, Mr. Pritchard, you just mentioned that you had recently had some people reach out to you in regards to they're a tenant for maybe a house or apartment, and they're a little behind on their rent. What should they do in that type of situation?
Well, once again, we preach in every situation. Reach out to your landlord and see if you can resolve it. Reach out to your credit card people. Reach out. Many times there's a solution that they're willing to do that you weren't aware of. But if you can't reach an agreement, surprisingly, we can do the same thing in a Chapter 13 for the tenant as we can do for the mortgage. So you're 2 months behind. The eviction notice has come. We can file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and any bankruptcy we file, I haven't really addressed this, but one of the main advantages of filing bankruptcy is we get something called the automatic stay. Your creditor is forced to take no action until they go to the bankruptcy court for permission, and they have to go through me to do that. So we are able for the tenant to put together the same program. You've missed 3 months rent and it's $1,500 a month. It's $4,500. You just don't have $4,500. We can put that $4,500 and spread it out in your Chapter 13 plan and allow you to begin making the rent as you would on a regular basis, just starting on a new monthly basis without getting caught up. The key is that bankruptcy only helps if it's before there is an eviction file or eviction order entered. I can't do anything if the judge has already said you're out. But if I can get it filed 1 minute before that judge rules, we can stop that. And as you can imagine, that's going to keep you in the apartment, the house, and only make you responsible for catching up the payments at a method that you can make happen. So it's a really good plan for your tenants. It's something that has developed in the recent years that tenants have been able to use that. And of course, this follows that rents are skyrocketing and people are having trouble making payments. So it's good to have another source. And it allows you not to have to move your family on short notice or virtually no notice, and tell your kids you got to move to a different school, whatever goes into that moving, and saves you from coming up with a new deposit, because certainly your new landlord, if you're moving out after an eviction, is going to look at a fairly serious deposit. So bankruptcy, we can help the tenants, and at the Pritchard Law Firm, we'd love the opportunity to explain how that works for your problem.
Something I really wanted to get to, and it kind of really just plays off what we were just discussing in regards to the tenant situation, because, of course, if they're in that type of situation, you would be having some financial problems. So if I'm going to talk to a lawyer about said financial problems, Mr. Pritchard, but what information do I need so the lawyers can help me solve these problems? What should I bring to the table if I'm going to come and sit down and talk to you, essentially?
There's three general areas that the lawyer would like to see. Number one, we would need to have an understanding of your income. We don't want to have unrealistic planning. Hey, we can spread this debt out and we can solve it by you paying $1,200 a month. But you're making $1,400 a month. So you can't pay $1,200 a month. So some understanding of your income situation so we can know which way to handle the problem. The second would be we'd like a list. And if you know it, that list to include how much you owe each person. If all you can do is provide us a list, we need a list of the creditors for two reasons. The first one is we have to make sure we don't have a conflict. If somewhere in the past I've represented somebody that you owe money to, I may not be able to represent you, and so we want to make a quick check of that. That's very rare, but it's still an obligation that we all have. The second is that certain debt gets treated differently. And just by knowing the name of the creditor, many times, from my experience, I can tell you what type of loan that is and how that's going to be treated. For example, if you owe Ford Motor Company, I would bet that you have a car loan, and we ought to talk about the car and how much it's worth and what the payments are compared to a MasterCard. Well, a MasterCard, we would believe that there would be no asset. When we purchase property on or items on our MasterCard, they don't get a lien on that item. But when you purchase a car, they take a lien on that car. And so that's an important thing to know. And then the other thing is I would like to have a rough idea of your assets. Now, for most of us, we'll just say, I've got a house, I've got 2 cars, and I've got some personal property. And that's fine. That's easy to work with. But if you've got something extra that might complicate things or might need special attention, we'd want to know about that too. For example, in my case, I own a boat. Now, I don't have any debt on that boat, but if I was planning, I'd certainly want to be planning to be able to keep my boat because that's something that's important to me. But if you don't tell me, I don't know that you have something that's important, whether that's a boat, a motorcycle, a four-wheeler, or a piece of land up in Oklahoma. We'd like to know that to help plan. We don't need to know the specifics, but we just need to know generally these 3 areas. Here's my income. Here's my debt. Here's who I owe. And then here's my assets. And that's the information that if you bring, we'll be able to help you.
We got a couple minutes left on the show, Mr. Pritchard. Let's go ahead and do one more question before we wrap things up. I wanted to talk about judgments. If somebody had a judgment entered against them, what can creditors do to recover the judgment? Can they make me sell my house?
They cannot make you sell your house. In Texas, we have the constitutional homestead exemption, and that lien does not allow them to sell your house. But I have a file on my desk right now where my client has a homestead and that judgment lien is against it, and the judgment lien creditor has said, I'm not going to release it. Well, there's a procedure we can go through to get that lien released so that you can sell your house and not have to pay that judgment. Now, I want to touch base on judgments because judgments are good for 10 years here in Texas and can be renewed beyond 10 years. I occasionally have people come and see me that have judgments that started out at $1,500, but the court awarded 12% interest. Well, guess what? 10 years later, all of a sudden that's $15,000 obligation, and it becomes very difficult. We can handle that several different ways depending on your situation, but we'd be glad to explain how that impacts each of your assets. And the one that's scariest is that they can garnish your checking account. In Texas, we do not have wage garnishment, but once the money goes into your checking account, it can be taken and garnished. And of course, all of us, whether we're in good financial position or poor financial position, if everybody comes and takes everything out of our checking and savings account, we're going to have trouble paying next month's bills.
Yeah.
And so that's a scary thought. So it's not uncommon for me to see people who, they were 22. They owed $3,000. They blew it off. The judgment got entered. Now they're 32, living in a nice house, have a family, have $15,000 in the bank, maybe more, and they're calling me up saying, my checking account's been frozen. Well, that's because that judgment is still good after 10 years. So that's the one you want to be careful about. If you've got those hanging out there, we ought to at least talk about what your options are and what the risks are, and so you understand that.
Mr. Pritchard,
I don't think go ahead.
We're close on time. How about we just do a quick 30-second wrap-up and closing remarks for our listeners out there real quick?
All right. I'd urge you, the main thing to do is financial problems cause stress. They cause arguments. Just address them. We're not scary people. Lawyers aren't scary people. I'm exceptionally not a scary person. Come talk to us. Get the questions answered. If you go to my website, you can click on and you can get some information that will help start you too. We'd like to help you have a better summer, better fall. More importantly, we want this January to be better than last January for you. And that's really the goal. So if you'll reach out to us, we'll be glad to help you. The Pritchard Law Firm can help.
DLPlegal.com. That's DLPlegal.com. 817-285-8017. That's 817-285-8017. Great to have you back on, Mr. Pritchard, and look forward to talking to you here soon, okay?
Okay, enjoyed it. Hope listeners learned something today.
Absolutely. I'm sure they did. It's always great to have him on. We'll do it again with him very soon. We got to wrap things up. Another edition of Ask the Experts in the book. We do this every week, 10 to 12. Have a great weekend, folks.